The UES Aurora drifted through the cold darkness of space like a small metal island in an endless black ocean. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main window while his crew worked at their stations behind him. The ship had been traveling for 6 months now, searching for new worlds that humans could call home. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee and stood next to Jake. She was the ship's main scientist and had become Jake's closest friend during their long journey. Her job was to study any life they might find out here in the deep parts of space where no human had ever been before. "Still nothing on the long-range sensors?" said Lieutenant Sam Carter from his position at the communications desk. Sam was young but very good at his job. He could pick up radio signals from very far away and translate them into something the crew could understand. Jake nodded and took a sip from his own coffee cup. The Aurora was a good ship, but it felt very small when you thought about how big space really was. They had food and fuel for another year, but so far they had found nothing except empty planets made of rock and ice. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez came up from the lower levels of the ship. His hands were dirty with oil and his uniform had grease stains on it. Tony kept all the machines running and made sure the ship could fly through space without any problems. "The engines are running perfect," Tony said to Jake. "We can keep going for as long as you want." Jake was about to answer when Sam suddenly sat up straight at his desk. The young officer put his hand to the earphone he wore, and his eyes went wide. "Commander, I'm picking up something," Sam said in an excited voice. "It's a distress signal, but it's not coming from any human ship." Everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing and looked at Sam. Dr. Morgan put down her coffee cup and walked over to Sam's station. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Jake asked. Sam worked with his controls for a few seconds. "Yes, sir, it's about 2 hours away at our current speed. The signal is very weak, but it keeps repeating the same message over and over." "What does the message say?" Dr. Morgan asked. "I can't understand it," Sam said. "It's not in any human language I know, but the pattern suggests it's asking for help." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was what they had been looking for. Not just empty planets, but real proof that other, intelligent life existed in the galaxy. But the rules from Earth were very clear. If they found aliens, they were supposed to send a message back to Earth and wait for orders. They were not supposed to make contact on their own. "How long would it take to get a message back to Earth and receive new orders?" Jake asked Sam. "About 8 months," Sam replied. 4 months for our message to reach Earth and 4 months for their answer to reach us. Jake looked out the window again. Somewhere out there, alien beings were in trouble and asking for help. In 8 months, whatever was happening to them would be long over. They would either have solved their problems, or they would be dead. "Tony, can we reach them?" Jake asked the engineer. "Sure," Tony said. 2 hours is nothing for the Aurora." Dr. Morgan moved closer to Jake. "The protocols are very clear about this situation," she said quietly. "We're supposed to report back to Earth first." Jake knew she was right. The people back on Earth had made those rules for good reasons. Meeting aliens for the first time was dangerous and could go wrong in many ways. But Jake also knew that sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules. What if they were humans? Jake asked Dr. Morgan. What if it was a human ship sending that distress call? "Then we would go help them right away," she answered. "So why should it be different just because they're not human?" Jake said, "If someone is in trouble and asking for help, we help them. That's what humans do." Dr. Morgan smiled. She had hoped Jake would say something like that. "Sam, set course for the source of that signal," Jake ordered. "Tony, give me maximum speed." "Yes, sir," both men said at the same time. The Aurora turned in space and began moving toward the unknown. Jake felt nervous but also excited. They were about to make history as the first humans to help aliens in need. 2 hours later, they found the alien ship. It was much bigger than the Aurora, maybe 10 times larger, but it looked badly damaged. Parts of its hull were torn open, and strange fluids leaked out into space. The ship was dark except for a few small lights that flickered on and off. "My God," Dr. Morgan whispered as she looked at the alien vessel on the main screen. The ship did not look like anything humans had ever built. It was long and curved like the body of some giant animal. Its surface was smooth and had patterns that looked almost like fur or scales. "I'm still picking up the distress signal," Sam reported. "It's much stronger now." Any signs of life?" Jake asked. Dr. Morgan looked at her instruments. "Yes, I'm reading multiple life forms inside the ship. Their body heat is much higher than humans, but they appear to be alive." Jake thought about what to do next. The alien ship was too big to fit inside the Aurora's cargo bay. They would have to go over there to help. "Tony, prepare the shuttle," Jake ordered. "Dr. Morgan, gather your medical supplies. We're going aboard that ship." "Commander," Sam said, "are you sure this is a good idea?" Jake looked at the damaged alien ship on the screen. Whatever was inside that ship had families and friends, just like humans did. They had dreams and hopes and fears. Right now, they were hurt and scared and asking for help. "It's the right thing to do," Jake said. "Get ready, people. We're going to make some new friends." Jake Harrison floated through the airlock that connected the small human shuttle to the massive alien ship. The gravity inside the alien vessel was different from Earth gravity, making him feel lighter on his feet. Dr. Lisa Morgan followed behind, him carrying a bag full of medical supplies, while Tony Martinez brought tools to help fix whatever was broken. The inside of the alien ship looked nothing like human ships. The walls were curved and smooth, almost like being inside a giant living creature. Strange lights glowed softly along the ceiling, giving everything a blue-green color. The air smelled different too, like forests after rain mixed with something Jake could not identify. They followed the sounds of pain and distress down a long hallway. When they reached what seemed to be the main control room, Jake stopped and stared. 3 alien beings lay on the floor, clearly hurt and bleeding. They looked like giant wolves that walked on 2 legs instead of 4. Their fur was silver and black, and they had intelligent eyes that watched the humans with a mixture of fear and hope. The largest alien tried to sit up when it saw them. It made sounds that might have been words, but Jake could not understand them. Dr. Morgan immediately knelt down next to the wounded creature and began examining its injuries. "This one has a broken arm and some cuts that need to be cleaned," she said to Jake. "The other 2 have similar injuries, but nothing that looks fatal." Jake nodded and looked around the control room. Many of the alien machines were sparking or completely dark. Tony was already looking at some of the damaged equipment, trying to figure out how it worked. "Their power systems are completely different from ours," Tony said, "but I think I can get some of their basic systems working again." The largest alien watched Dr. Morgan as she cleaned its wounds and wrapped bandages around its injured arm. It made soft sounds that seemed like it was trying to thank her. When she finished, it pointed to a device on one of the control panels. Jake picked up the device and brought it to the alien. When the creature touched it, the device began to glow and make strange humming sounds. Suddenly, words came out of it in broken English. "Thank you," the device said in a mechanical voice. "We did not expect help from unknown beings." Jake felt excited. They could actually talk to these aliens. "We heard your distress signal," he said to the device. "We came to help." The alien spoke to the device in its own language, and then the device translated. "We are scouts from the Galactic Council. Our ship was damaged by space debris while we were traveling through this region." Dr. Morgan looked up from treating. "The second alien? Galactic Council? You mean there are more species out there?" The alien's eyes seemed to shine with something that might have been amusement. It spoke to the device again. "Yes, many species. Hundreds of different worlds and beings all working together for peace and trade." Tony had managed to get some of the ship's lights working properly. "Commander," he said to Jake, "this is incredible. Their technology is far more advanced than ours, but the basic principles are the same." Jake sat down on the floor next to the alien leader, trying to show that he was friendly. "Why were you in this part of space?" he asked. The alien was quiet for a long moment. When it finally spoke, the translation device said something that surprised everyone. We were sent to observe your species. The Council has been watching humans for some time. Watching us? Dr. Morgan asked. Why? Your species is new to space travel? The device translated. The Council must decide if humans are ready to join. The galactic community. Jake felt a chill run down his back. This meeting was much more important than he had realized. What kind of test is it? He asked. The alien looked at each of the humans in turn. Its golden eyes seemed to be studying them carefully. The test is simple, the translation came. When a species first encounters other beings in need, what do they do? Do they help or do they turn away? Do they show kindness or do they show fear? And what have other species done? Dr. Morgan asked while she finished bandaging the third alien. Most species fail, the device said sadly. Some attack us because they are afraid. Some ignore our distress signals because they do not want to get involved. Some help us, but only because they want something in return. Tony stopped working on the alien machines. But we didn't know you were testing us, he said. That is exactly the point, the translation device replied. A test only works if the beings being tested do not know they are being tested. You heard a cry for help from unknown beings, and without thinking about danger or reward, you came. To help us, Jake realized what this meant. So our ship being damaged, that was not really an accident? The alien leader made sounds that the device translated as something like laughter. Our ship can be repaired easily. We have tools that can fix anything that is truly broken. But we wanted to see what you would do when you found us hurt and helpless. Dr. Morgan had finished treating all three aliens and was packing up her medical supplies. And what happens now? She asked. The alien leader stood up, testing its newly bandaged arm. It spoke for a long time to the translation device. When it finished, the device said, "Now we must return to the Council and tell them what we have learned. But first, I must tell you something important." All three humans waited to hear what the alien would say next. There is an old story among the Council species, the device translated. It was written by beings who lived long ago, before any of us reached the stars. The story speaks of a species that would come from a small world, a species that would feed wild, injured wolves even though the wolves might bite them. Jake did not understand. What does that mean? It means, the device said, that someday a species would appear that cares more about helping others than protecting themselves. A species that sees an injured enemy and thinks only of healing, not of danger. The alien leader looked directly at Jake. Today you proved that humans are the species from the old story. You are the ones who feed wild, injured wolves. Jake felt something change inside him. This was bigger than just first contact with aliens. This was about what it meant to be human. What happens next? He asked. Next, the translation device said, you come with us to meet the Council. The journey to the Galactic Council took 3 days through space that looked different from anything Jake Harrison had ever seen. The alien ship moved through regions filled with colors that had no names and stars that burned in patterns too. Perfect to be natural, Dr. Lisa Morgan spent most of her time learning the alien language while Tony Martinez worked with the alien engineers to understand their technology. When they finally arrived at the Council station, Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The station was so large that it looked like a small moon floating in space. Ships of dozens of different designs came and went from docking bays that covered its surface. Some ships looked like crystals, others like metal flowers, and some looked like living creatures swimming through the darkness. Ambassador Kate Phillips had been called from Earth as soon as Jake sent word about the contact. She arrived at the station on a fast ship just hours before the Council meeting was scheduled to begin. Kate was older than Jake and had spent her whole career learning how to talk to people from different cultures. Now she would use those skills to talk to beings from different worlds. General Rick Davis came with Kate because the Earth government wanted military advice about these new aliens. Rick was a careful man who always thought about potential dangers, but even he was amazed by what they found at the Council station. The 4 humans walked through corridors filled with beings they had only dreamed about in stories. There were creatures that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and some that floated in the air without any visible means of support. All of them watched the humans with curious eyes. Dr. Alan Foster was already at the station when they arrived. He was a man who studied old languages and ancient history, and the council had asked him to come because they said his knowledge would be important for what they were about to learn. The alien leader who had first tested them was named Kethvaran, which the translation devices shortened to just Keth. He guided the humans to a massive chamber where representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss important matters. Elder Zaraketh was the oldest being Jake had ever seen. She looked like Keth, but her silver fur had turned white with age, and her golden eyes held the wisdom of centuries. She spoke in a voice so ancient that even the translation devices seemed to struggle with her words. "Welcome, humans," Elder Zaraketh said. "We have been waiting for your kind for longer than your species has existed." Kate stepped forward as Earth's representative. "We are honored to meet you, but we do not understand why you have been waiting." "For us specifically?" Elder Zaraketh gestured to a wall that suddenly came alive with images and symbols. Long ago, before any of the current council species had learned to travel between stars, there lived a race called the Predecessors. They were the first to unite many worlds under the banner of peace. Dr. Foster watched the images with growing excitement. The symbols and writing looked familiar somehow, like things he had seen in Earth's oldest archaeological sites. "The Predecessors left us many gifts," Elder Zaraketh continued. "Technology, wisdom, and most importantly, a prophecy about a species that would come when the galaxy needed them most." The wall showed images of creatures that looked remarkably like humans, though the pictures were so old and stylized that it was hard to be certain. These beings were shown caring for other creatures, feeding them, healing them, protecting them. "The prophecy speaks of the feeders of wolves," Elder Zaraketh said, "a species that would emerge from a world of predators, but instead of becoming predators themselves, they would become protectors. They would care for the wounded, even if the wounded were their enemies." Jake felt a strange sensation, as if he was hearing something he had always known but never understood. "Why wolves specifically?" he asked. Keth answered this time. Your world, wolves are dangerous predators that could kill humans easily. Yet throughout your history, humans have found wounded wolves and cared for them. You have taken wolf pups and raised them as friends. You turned your greatest enemy into your most loyal companion." Dr. Foster suddenly understood. "Dogs," he said quietly. "We domesticated wolves and they became dogs. We turned predators into family members." "Exactly," Elder Zaraketh said. "No other species in the galaxy has ever done this. Most species either destroy their predators or avoid them. Only humans chose to make friends with the creatures that hunt them." The wall showed more images now, scenes from human history that somehow the predecessors had predicted thousands of years ago. Humans caring for injured animals, humans helping strangers, humans risking their lives to save others even when it made no logical sense. "But this is just how we are," Dr. Morgan said. "We do not think it is special or unusual." "That is what makes it special," Elder Zaraketh replied. "You do these things without thinking about it. Compassion is not something you choose, it is something you are." General Davis had been quiet during most of the conversation, but now he spoke up. "What does this prophecy say will happen? What are we supposed to do?" The ancient alien's expression became serious. "The prophecy warns of a great darkness that will threaten all life in the galaxy. It says that when this darkness comes, only the feeders of wolves will know how to stop it." "How?" Kate asked. "By doing what you have always done," Elder Zaraketh said. "By showing mercy to those who do not deserve it. By caring for those who would destroy you. By feeding the wild injured wolves." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "This darkness, is it coming soon?" Elder Zaraketh looked at each of the humans in turn. "It is already here," she said softly. "For the past 50 years, worlds on the edge of our territory have been disappearing. Entire systems have gone dark. We have sent our greatest warriors and our most advanced weapons, but nothing can stop them. Them? Tony asked. The Devourers, Keth said. Machines from the dark spaces between galaxies. They consume everything they touch, turning matter into energy to feed their endless hunger. Dr. Foster looked at the ancient symbols on the wall. And you think humans can stop them? We hope you can, Elder Zaraketh said. Because if you cannot, then everything we have built, every world we have protected, every species we have saved, will be consumed by the darkness. The chamber fell silent. Jake looked around at his fellow humans and saw the same mixture of fear and determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. What do we need to do? He asked. Elder Zaraketh smiled, and for the first time since they had arrived, she looked hopeful. You need to be yourselves, she said. You need to show the galaxy what it means to feed wild, injured wolves. Captain Ben Taylor stood on the bridge of his ship watching the emergency fleet assemble near the council station. Ships from dozens of worlds had come together to face the Devourer threat, but Ben knew that Earth's contribution looked pathetically small compared to the massive alien warships surrounding them. The humans had only been able to send 12 ships, while some alien species had brought hundreds. Dr. Nina Ross worked at her station, analyzing everything the Council knew about the Devourers. She was Earth's best tactical analyst, but the information she found was not encouraging. Every military attack against the Devourers had failed completely. The mechanical beings seemed to learn from each battle and become stronger. Commander Alex Turner led Earth's Special Operations Team. He was a man who had spent his life preparing for impossible missions, but even he felt overwhelmed by what they were facing. The Devourers had consumed 47 star systems in the past year alone, and nothing the galaxy's combined forces had tried could slow them down. Jake Harrison was now working directly with Elder Zaraketh and the Council. Leadership. They had given him the title of Human Liaison, which meant he was supposed to help coordinate between Earth forces and the Galactic fleet. But Jake felt like he was pretending to be something he was not. He was just a ship captain, not a military leader or a diplomat. The first battle report came in 3 days after the fleet was assembled. A Devourer scouting force had been detected moving toward an inhabited system called Kepler 442. The system had 6 billion people living on 3 different worlds, and they could not be evacuated in time. Fleet Admiral Vex Morin was a being that looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and compound eyes. He had led successful military campaigns for over a century and was considered one of the greatest strategic minds in the galaxy. But when he saw the Devourer force approaching Kepler 442, even he seemed worried. Their ships are larger than anything we have ever seen, Admiral Vex Morin said to the gathered fleet commanders. Our intelligence suggests they have weapons that can destroy a planet from orbit. Captain Taylor looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer fleet. The enemy ships did not look like anything built by living beings. They were geometric shapes made of black metal with no visible windows or external features. They moved through space in perfect formation like parts of a single giant machine. What's our plan? Jake asked. We hit them with everything we have, Admiral Vex Morin replied. Concentrated firepower from maximum range, then retreat before they can counterattack. Dr. Ross had been studying the tactical data all morning. Admiral, respectfully, that strategy has failed in every previous engagement. The Devourers seem to adapt to whatever weapons are used against them. Do you have a better suggestion, human? The Admiral asked with what sounded like irritation. Dr. Ross looked around the room at all the alien military leaders. Actually, yes, what if we try to capture one of their smaller ships instead of destroying them? The room fell silent. Commander Turner was the first to speak. Capture? These things have been consuming entire worlds. Why would we want to bring one of them closer to our forces? Because we need to understand how they think, Dr. Ross explained. Every species we have met operates according to some kind of logic or motivation. If we can figure out what drives the Devourers, maybe we can find a way to stop them. Admiral Vex Morin made a sound that the translation devices interpreted as scoffing. The Devourers are machines, human. They do not think. They simply consume. There is nothing to understand. But Elder Zaraketh, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Perhaps we should consider the human suggestion. Our current methods have certainly not been successful. 2 days later, the combined fleet engaged the Devourers near Kepler 442. The battle was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Energy weapons that could vaporize mountains struck shields that turned the attacks into harmless light. Ships the size of cities maneuvered through space as easily as fighters. Captain Taylor's ship, the Earth vessel Defender, was much smaller than most of the alien warships, but it was also much faster. When a damaged Devourer scout ship broke away from the main battle, Taylor was able to pursue it into an asteroid field where the larger ships could not follow. The Devourer scout was about the same size as the Defender, but it was clearly damaged. Parts of its black hull were torn open and strange fluids leaked into space. It moved erratically as if its control systems were failing. "This is our chance," Dr. Ross said from her station. "We can disable it with focused EMP bursts and bring it aboard for study." Commander Turner looked skeptical. "And what happens if it decides to consume our ship from the inside?" "Then we eject it into space and destroy it," Captain Taylor said. But Dr. Ross is right. This might be our only opportunity to learn something useful. The capture operation took 4 hours. The human crew used magnetic grapples and tractor beams to pull the damaged Devourer scout into their cargo bay. Every precaution was taken to isolate it from the ship's main systems. When Dr. Ross and her team began examining the captured machine, they discovered something unexpected. The Devourer was not just damaged by weapons fire. Parts of its internal systems had simply stopped working, as if the machine was experiencing some kind of breakdown. "It's almost like it's sick," Dr. Ross told Captain Taylor. "Some of its processing nodes are functioning normally, but others seem to be in a state of confusion." Jake Harrison arrived on the Defender 12 hours later to see what they had learned. He found Dr. Ross working alongside alien scientists who had never seen a Devourer up close before. "What have you discovered?" Jake asked. "Something incredible," Dr. Ross replied. "This machine is not just programmed to consume, it's programmed to learn and adapt. But the learning system is malfunctioning." Jake looked through the thick protective glass at the Devourer scout. It was a sleek black shape about the size of a small aircraft, with no visible weapons or sensors. But occasionally, lights would flicker along its surface in patterns that seemed almost like communication attempts. "Can we fix it?" Jake asked. Every alien in the room turned to stare at him. Commander Turner looked like Jake had suggested juggling live grenades. "Fix it?" Dr. Ross said. "Jake, this thing is designed to consume entire worlds. Why would we want to fix it?" Jake kept looking at the damaged machine. "Because it's hurt," he said simply. "And when something is hurt and asking for help, we help it." Elder Zaraketh, who had been observing silently, made a sound that might have been amazement. "The prophecy," she whispered. "Even now, even with this, you want to feed the injured Volf." Admiral Chris Johnson watched from the command center as human engineers worked to repair the captured Devourer scout ship. The alien representatives from the council thought the humans had lost their minds, but they allowed the experiment to continue because nothing else had worked against the Devours. Dr. Marie Clark was Earth's leading expert on understanding how different minds work. She had spent weeks studying the Devourer's damaged systems and made a discovery that shocked everyone. The machine was not just broken, it was confused. Its programming told it to consume everything, but somehow it had developed the ability to question that programming. Commander Pete Williams had been working with alien diplomats to explain humanity's unusual approach to the Devourer problem. Most species could not understand why humans would want to help their deadliest enemy, but a few were beginning to see the logic behind it. The repair work took 3 weeks. Tony Martinez led a team of human and alien engineers who carefully fixed the Devourer's damaged systems. They had to learn an entirely new type of technology that was based on living metal and quantum processing, but gradually they began to understand how the machine worked. When the repairs were finished, The Devourer Scout powered up for the first time since its capture. Lights flowed across its surface in complex patterns, and it began transmitting signals that the translation computers could not understand at first. Dr. Clark worked day and night to decode the machine's communications. What she found was unlike anything anyone had expected. The Devourer was not just a mindless consumer. It was a being with thoughts and feelings, trapped inside a body that forced it to destroy everything it encountered. "It's trying to say thank you," Dr. Clark told Jake Harrison when she finally cracked the code. "But it's also terrified. It knows what it was designed to do, and it doesn't want to do it anymore." Jake stood in front of the containment field that held the Devourer Scout. The machine's lights pulsed in what Dr. Clark said were patterns of gratitude and fear. Jake felt the same way he had when he was a child and found an injured bird in his backyard. He wanted to help, even though he knew the bird might bite him. "Can we communicate with it directly?" Jake asked. Dr. Clark activated the translation system she had built. "We can try. But remember, this machine has been programmed to see all organic life as food. Its basic instincts are still dangerous." Jake stepped closer to the containment field. "Hello," he said simply. "My name is Jake. We fixed your injuries. How do you feel?" The Devourer's lights flickered rapidly for several seconds before the translation system produced words. "Confusion, gratitude, fear. You repair damage, but you are food. Programming says consume. New thoughts say protect, conflict." Dr. Clark looked amazed. "It's experiencing internal conflict between its original programming and new thoughts that developed when we repaired it." "What new thoughts?" Jake asked the machine. "Mercy," the Devourer replied. "Unknown concept until repair." "You could have destroyed unit. You chose healing instead." "Mercy creates new pathways in processing matrix." Jake felt his heart racing. This was bigger than just one machine. If Mercy could change a Devourer's programming, maybe it could change all of them. "What will you do now?" Jake asked. The machine was quiet for a long time. When it finally answered, its words surprised everyone. "Return to collective, share new pathways. Show others mercy concept, change what we are." Admiral Johnson had been listening to the conversation. "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "We cannot release a Devourer back to their fleet. It's too dangerous." But Elder Zaraketh, who had been observing the entire process, spoke up. "Admiral, this machine represents our best chance to end the war without destroying either side. We must consider releasing it." The debate went on for hours. Military leaders from dozens of species argued that releasing the Devourer was too risky. But the diplomatic representatives were beginning to see possibilities that pure military force could not achieve. Dr. Marie Clark spent more time talking with the Devourer Scout and learned that the collective was not as unified as everyone had believed. Individual units retained some independence and could influence each other through shared data connections. If this unit returns to the collective with new programming that values mercy over consumption, it could spread that programming to other units, Dr. Clark explained to the Council. It might start a revolution within the Devourer fleet. "Commander." Williams had been working with representatives from species that had previously been enemies of each other. The human approach to the Devourer problem was inspiring other species to reconsider their own conflicts. "Something interesting is happening," Commander Williams reported to Jake. "The Altarian Republic and the Vegan Empire have been at war for 200 years, but yesterday they signed a temporary peace treaty. They said if humans can show mercy to the Devourers, they can show mercy to each other." Similar reports came in from across the galaxy. Species that had been fighting for generations were laying down their weapons and attempting to resolve their differences peacefully. The human example was spreading like an infection of kindness throughout the galactic community. Fleet Admiral Lex Morin was one of the strongest opponents of releasing the Devourer, but even he was beginning to see the larger implications. "If we release this machine and it succeeds in changing the collective, we could end the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced," he admitted. "But if it fails, we will have given our enemies valuable intelligence about our capabilities." Jake looked around the room at all the alien representatives. Fear and hope warred in their expressions, just like the conflict inside the Devourer's programming. "What does your heart tell you to do?" he asked Admiral Lex Morin, the insectoid admiral. Made clicking sounds that the translators interpreted as laughter. "Humans in your hearts," he said. "My people make decisions with logic and calculation. Hearts are for pumping blood." "But what would your heart say if you had one?" Jake pressed. Admiral Lex Morin was quiet for a moment. "My heart would say that mercy is stronger than fear," he finally answered. "My heart would say that the young human species has taught us something we had forgotten." The vote to release the Devourer was close. 47 species voted in favor, 43 voted against, and 12 abstained. But it was enough. As the Devourer scout prepared to leave the human ship, it sent one final message through Dr. Clark's translation system. "Gratitude beyond programming capacity. We'll remember mercy. We'll teach others." Pack grows stronger when injured members are healed rather than abandoned. Jake smiled. Even a machine from another galaxy understood that feeding injured wolves was the key to building a stronger pack. President Helen Brown stood in the Emergency Command Center on Earth, watching the most important moment in human history unfold on the main screen. The Devourer Collective had been silent for 3 months after their scout returned to them, and now a massive fleet of the black geometric ships was approaching the Council Station where representatives from across the galaxy waited. Captain Roy Mitchell commanded the lead human vessel in the defensive formation. He had volunteered for what everyone expected to be a suicide mission, but Roy felt strangely calm as he watched the Devourer ships approach. Something about their movement patterns seemed different from the reports of previous encounters. Ambassador Lucy Green had spent weeks preparing for what might be humanity's final diplomatic contact with the galaxy. She carried messages from every nation on Earth expressing their hope that the act of mercy shown to one damaged machine might somehow save everyone. Jake Harrison stood beside Elder Zaraketh in the council chamber, watching the tactical displays that showed both fleets facing each other across empty space. The tension in the room was so thick it felt hard to breathe, but Jake noticed that the Devourer ships were not moving into attack formation. The first communication came at exactly noon, Council Standard Time, instead of the harsh mechanical voices that previous Devourer contacts had produced. The message was transmitted in dozens of languages simultaneously, as if the collective wanted to make sure every species could understand. "Greetings to the Galactic Council and the species called humans," the message began. "We are the collective formerly known as Devourers. We come not to consume but to communicate." Dr. Marie Clark was monitoring the transmission from her position on Captain Mitchell's ship. The voice patterns and linguistic structures were completely different from the original Devourer scout they had repaired. Something fundamental had changed within the collective. 3 months ago, one of our units returned to us carrying new programming, the Devourer message continued. This programming contained a concept we had never encountered. The concept of mercy, the concept of healing rather than consuming, the concept of making the pack stronger by caring for its injured members. Elder Zaraketh made a sound of amazement. She had lived for over 400 years and had never imagined she would hear a Devourer speak of mercy and healing. The integration of this new programming created conflict within our collective, the voice went on. Units that had operated in perfect harmony for millennia began to question their purpose. Some units wished to continue the consumption protocols. Others wished to explore the mercy programming. The collective divided. President Brown felt her hands shaking as she listened to the transmission. The fate of human civilization and possibly the entire galaxy hung on what the machines would say next. After extensive analysis and internal conflict, the collective has reached a decision, the Devourer voice announced. Units that wish to continue consumption have departed for the void between galaxies where they can consume empty matter without harming living beings. Units that have accepted mercy programming remain here. Captain Mitchell watched his instruments. As roughly half the Devourer fleet broke away from the main formation and began moving toward the edge of the galaxy, The ships that remained arranged themselves in what could only be described as a peaceful formation. "We who remain request permission to join the Galactic Council as a new species," the Devourer transmission continued. "We wish to contribute our technological capabilities to the protection and betterment of all life in the galaxy. We offer this request as an act of gratitude to the species called humans, who showed mercy to our damaged unit when they could have chosen destruction." The council chamber erupted in sounds of amazement from hundreds of different species. Representatives, who had expected to witness the final battle between organic life and mechanical devourers, were instead witnessing the birth of the first artificial species to seek peaceful coexistence. Ambassador Green was the first to speak when order was restored. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, we welcome you to the community of species that choose cooperation over conflict." But the Devourer Collective was not finished with their message. "There is one more matter we must address," the voice said. "We have analyzed the historical records of all council species and compared them to the actions of humans. In every case where species encountered unknown beings in distress, the human response was unique." Elder Zaraketh leaned forward in her chair, sensing that something momentous was about to happen. Other species showed caution, fear, or calculated self-interest when faced with helping unknown beings, the Devourer Collective continued. "Only humans consistently chose immediate aid without regard for personal safety or potential benefit. This pattern matches exactly the prophecy left by the predecessors about the species that would feed wild injured wolves." Jake felt his heart beating faster as he realized what the machines were leading up to. "Therefore, in recognition of their unique contribution to galactic peace and their fulfillment of the ancient prophecy, we propose that the species called humans be granted the position of moral guidance for the Galactic Council," the collective announced. "We propose that Earth become the center of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the example of compassion they have shown to all beings, even those who threaten them." The vote was unanimous. Every species in the council, including the newly joined reformed Devourers, agreed that humanity should become the moral center of galactic civilization. As the ceremony concluded, Keth Varen, the alien scout who had first tested humanity, approached Jake Harrison. The Volf-like being looked older now, but his golden eyes still held the same intelligence and wisdom that Jake remembered from their first meeting. "Commander Harrison," Keth said through his translation device, "there is one final thing that must be said." The prophecy spoke of a moment when the feeders of wolves would be recognized for what they truly are. "That moment has arrived?" Jake waited, sensing that something important was about to happen. Keth stood at attention and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the chamber. "Humans have the duty of feeding wild injured wolves," he said formally. It stated gratitude. Commander-in-Chief. The title rippled through the chamber as translation devices rendered it in hundreds of languages. Commander-in-Chief of the Galactic Council. Leader not through strength or cunning, but through the simple act of showing mercy to those who needed it most. Jake looked around the chamber at beings from countless worlds, all of them united now by the understanding that compassion was stronger than conquest. Somewhere in Earth schools, human children would soon be teaching alien younglings the most important lesson humanity had ever learned. When you see someone hurt, you help them, even if they might be dangerous, even if they might be your enemy. The wild injured wolves had become the pack leaders, and the galaxy was stronger for it.